Hello. Welcome to OJ Studios. Please enjoy today's chapter of A Week as a Girl by Lacey Julius.
Part 1. I looked at Allison, who in turn looked at me and smiled. Today was the last day of Allison's punishment, which means that today was the last day both Allison and I will be girls. The time tomorrow I will be back to being a 12-year-old boy, just in time for my second year of middle school. Allison will be back to being Steven, a junior at the high school. But for today we were still 7-year-old girls, and right now we are in the back seat of the car, driving down the country roads. Both Allison and I both wore semi-formal dresses with white tights. I wore a purple dress with thin spaghetti straps while Allison wore a pink sleeveless dress. It's kind of funny how when I first turned into a girl I used to hate dresses, now I don't mind them. The car hit a bump, awaking me from my thoughts. We were now deep in the countryside, trees lined forming a canopy overhead. We were not here for us though, only the three of us in this car knows why we are here today. Why Allison and I are wearing dresses, and why Mom looks both nervous and happy at the same time. Mom drove with a steady focus, her hands gripping the steering wheel a little tighter than usual. The soft hum of the engine and the gentle sway of the car lulled me back into my thoughts, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something important was about to happen. I glanced over at Allison, who was looking out the window, her expression a mix of curiosity and quiet anticipation. The countryside was beautiful, with its rolling hills and vibrant green fields stretching out as far as the eye could see, but the scenery felt secondary to the unspoken tension in the car. The dresses Allison and I wore weren't the kind you'd pick out for a casual day. They were special, the kind of outfits you wore to church on Easter Sunday or to a wedding. I looked down at my purple dress, the soft fabric cool against my skin, and ran my fingers over the delicate lace trim at the hem. I'd grown used to wearing dresses over the summer, but today, it felt different, like the dress was part of a larger story, one that was unfolding in the silence between us. Mom's expression was hard to read. Her eyes were focused on the road, but there was a softness in her gaze, as if she were lost in her own thoughts. She'd been acting a little strange this morning, more attentive, more deliberate in her actions. The way she'd helped us get dressed, carefully smoothing out every wrinkle, checking that our hair was just right, and then that quiet moment before we left the house when she looked at us both with something like pride in her eyes. I had wanted to ask her what was going on, but something told me that this was one of those times where it was better to wait and see. The road eventually narrowed, winding its way through dense woods until it opened up into a small clearing. Mom slowed the car and pulled into a gravel driveway that led up to a charming, old-fashioned farmhouse. The house was painted a soft, weathered white, with a wide porch that wrapped around the front and sides, framed by hanging baskets of flowers in full bloom. It looked like something out of a picture book, peaceful and timeless. Mom turned off the engine and sat for a moment, her hands still on the wheel. Then she took a deep breath, as if gathering her courage, and turned to us with a warm, reassuring smile. "We're here, girls," she said softly. "Are you ready?" I exchanged a quick glance with Allison, who looked as uncertain as I felt, but we both nodded. Whatever was happening, we were in this together. As we stepped out of the car, I felt the gravel crunch under my Mary Janes, a reminder of how different this place was from the city. The air was fresher here, filled with the scent of flowers and pine. Mom came around to join us, her eyes flicking toward the house, where the front door was just beginning to open. Elizabeth popped out looking both at Allison and me. At first, she was surprised that we looked so formal to be here, in the middle of the countryside. She waved warmly at us, her smile wide and genuine. "You made it!" she called, stepping off the porch to greet us. Her presence immediately put me at ease, even though she had no idea what was going to happen. Elizabeth pulled Allison into a tight hug first, then turned to me, her eyes sparkling. "Katie, you look lovely," she said, her voice full of warmth. "Thank you," I replied, managing a small smile. I felt a little self-conscious under her gaze, but there was something comforting in the way she looked at me, like she understood everything I was feeling without me needing to say a word. Elizabeth's warm greeting helped to ease some of the tension that had been building during the car ride. As she hugged us, I could feel a sense of calm settling over me, though a small part of me still buzzed with anticipation, like the moment before a surprise is revealed. Mom lingered by the car for a moment longer, her eyes meeting Elizabeth's with an unspoken understanding passing between them. It was clear that whatever was about to happen, Elizabeth was in on it too. After a few moments, Mom took a deep breath, her smile growing wider as she walked over to where we stood. "Girls," she said, her voice soft yet steady, "there's something very special I want to share with you today." Allison and I looked up at her, curiosity burning in our eyes. Elizabeth stepped back slightly, giving Mom the space she needed to say whatever was on her mind. "I know this summer has been unusual, to say the least," Mom began, her tone gentle. "And I know that both of you have been through a lot of changes. But today, we're here because I want to make a change of my own, one that I hope will bring us all closer together." Elizabeth reached out and took Mom's hand, her expression filled with love and support. Mom turned to face her, and in that moment, everything seemed to slow down. The air was thick with expectation, and I could feel my heart beating faster in my chest. "Elizabeth," Mom said, her voice trembling slightly, "you've been such an important part of our lives. You've been there for me and Kate in ways I can never fully express. And I can't imagine my life without you. So, here, in this place that means so much to us, I want to ask you something." With that, Mom let go of Elizabeth's hand and, to my astonishment, got down on one knee. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, opening it to reveal a simple yet elegant ring. The sunlight caught the band, making it sparkle as she held it up. "Elizabeth," Mom continued, her voice full of emotion, "will you marry me?" Time seemed to stand still as we all held our breath, waiting for Elizabeth's response. Allison's hand found mine, and I squeezed it tightly, feeling her excitement mirroring my own. Elizabeth's eyes filled with tears, but her smile was brighter than ever. She covered her mouth with one hand as she nodded, unable to speak at first. Finally, she managed to say, "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes!" Mom slipped the ring onto Elizabeth's finger, and they both stood up, embracing each other with a tenderness that made my heart swell. The joy in their faces was undeniable, and I knew, in that moment, that this was a new beginning for all of us. As they pulled apart, Elizabeth looked down at us, still holding Mom's hand. "Looks like we're going to be a family," she said softly, her voice filled with happiness. Allison and I rushed forward, wrapping our arms around both in a group hug. There was so much love in that moment, it felt like it could burst from us and fill the entire world. I could feel the warmth of their embrace. I looked at Allison, we were now more than friends, we were now officially stepsisters, and tomorrow we will be the closest of stepbrothers. Mom and Elizabeth finally pulled back, both wiping tears from their eyes, their smiles never fading. Elizabeth looked down at the ring on her finger, twisting it gently as if to make sure it was really there. "I can't believe this is happening," she said with a laugh that was half sob. "I'm the luckiest person in the world." Mom reached out and brushed a strand of hair away from Elizabeth's face, her gaze tender and full of love. "No, we're the lucky ones, all of us," she said, glancing at Allison and me. "This is the start of something beautiful." Elizabeth nodded, her eyes shining as she looked at us. "You two have been through so much," she said, her voice gentle. "And I know it hasn't been easy. But I want you to know that I'm here for you, always. We're in this together, and we're going to make the best of it." Allison and I nodded, feeling the weight of her words. There was a sense of reassurance in what she said, a promise that no matter what happened next, we would face it as a family. "Come on," Elizabeth said, her voice brightening as she wiped away the last of her tears. "Let's go inside and celebrate! We have so much to look forward to!"
Part 2. I got out of the car and watched as Stephen got out of the car on his side. Like me, he was still getting used to being taller, bigger, and different. Steven adjusted his shirt, looking a bit awkward in his new body. The transformation back to being boys again had been strange, almost surreal, but the relief that came with it was undeniable. The summer had been a whirlwind of emotions, changes, and unexpected challenges, but now, standing here on the cusp of a new school year, everything felt different, like we were stepping into a new chapter of our lives. I could see the uncertainty in Steven's eyes as he glanced at me. We were both a little nervous, not just about school but about how we would fit back into our old lives. The summer had changed us in ways that were hard to explain. We had experienced life from a completely different perspective, and even though we were back to being boys, those memories and experiences were still fresh in our minds. As we walked towards the school building, our footsteps echoing on the pavement, I couldn't help but think about all the questions that were bound to come our way. Friends would notice the changes in us, how could they not? We weren't just Cody and Steven anymore. We had lived as Katie and Allison, and that had left a mark on us that couldn't be erased. The school loomed ahead, its brick facade familiar yet intimidating. I could feel the weight of the first day back pressing down on me, but I knew I wasn't alone. Steven and I had been through so much together, and if there was one thing I was certain of, it was that we could handle whatever came our way as long as we stuck together. Steven shot me a small, encouraging smile, and for a brief moment, the weight pressing down on my shoulders seemed to lighten just a bit. His smile was warm and familiar, the kind of expression that had always managed to reassure me, even in the most daunting of situations. "We've got this," he said, his voice steady and calm. But I could hear the slight tremor beneath his words, the way he was trying to convince himself as much as he was trying to reassure me. It was as if he was reminding both of us that we were capable, that we had faced challenges before and come out stronger. "Yeah, we do," I replied, drawing on the confidence he was offering. My own voice sounded a little firmer, a little more assured. "Just like old times, right?" I added, trying to tap into that shared history, those memories of countless times we'd faced the unknown together, back when everything seemed simpler. Steven nodded, but in that brief moment, I caught a flicker of something deeper in his eyes, an understanding, perhaps, that while things might appear the same on the surface, there was no denying that we had both changed. Life had shaped us in ways that our classmates, those who only saw the surface, might not fully grasp. We had grown, not just as individuals, but in ways that had intertwined our stories even more closely. It was a change that was subtle, yet profound, and it was okay. It was part of who we were now, part of the unspoken bond that connected us. "Good luck, Allison," I said with a playful grin. There was a warmth in the teasing, a nod to the way we used to joke with each other, and it felt comforting, like slipping into an old, well-worn jacket. "You too, Katie," Steven replied with a soft smile. But just as I was about to turn and head toward the middle school, something made me pause. I turned back to face him, making sure we were out of earshot of anyone else. "Hey, we're still close, right?" I asked, my voice softer now, tinged with a hint of uncertainty. "Like, just because we're boys now doesn't mean we've changed, right?" Steven's smile grew a little, his eyes meeting mine with a familiar, comforting warmth. "We are still sisters," he said, his voice steady and sure. There was no hesitation, no doubt. It was a simple truth that he spoke, one that resonated deeply between us. "Sisters to the end," I continued, the words coming easily, naturally, as if they had always been there, waiting to be spoken. For a moment, we just stood there, letting those words hang in the air between us. There was something powerful in that moment, a reaffirmation of the bond we shared. No matter how much we had grown or changed, no matter how the world saw us now, that connection remained unbreakable.